Well, it started as your basic campus protest, complaints that administrators at the University of Missouri didn't take action when racial incidents were called to their attention. Now, though, it's much bigger, nationwide, and the issue for the media has been how to get beyond personal anecdotes to the bigger issue. There was a lot of cheering on the University of Missouri campus this week after the president and chancellor were forced to resign.
It's not just about Tim Wolf resigning, but it's about just getting equal rights.
Protesters claimed University President Tim Wolf did too little to address what they claim is a climate of racism.
It should not have taken this much, and it is disgusting and vile that we find ourselves in the place that we do.
And that's a narrative most of the media picked up.
But now the whole country is awakening to the racial tensions and growing revolt that boiled over today at the University of Missouri.
But read or listen to any story about the racial climate, and you only hear about sporadic incidents without much detail. Like this one from 2010, before Tim Wolf became president.
During Black History Month, cotton balls were placed on the grounds outside of the Black Culture Center.
It's also been widely reported that the student body president was called the N-word by a group of off-campus white males, that a black student's white roommate sang offensive rap lyrics, that a white student complained about sitting next to a black student in class. And then this.
This semester, a swastika painted in human feces was discovered in a dorm bathroom.
That bizarre swastika story appeared in every news report.
Mounting claims of racial slurs shouted on campus, a swastika found in a bathroom.
Still, the origin is unclear, or how or if it's related to the bigger issue. Nevertheless, a movement is born. So I don't have any doubt that there's racial tension not only at the University of Missouri, but at college campuses and businesses around the country. When I started really drilling down on this and reading every single story, including yesterday's New York Times, we build stories around usually one anecdote, one narrative. That's what the Times did yesterday. They followed a girl around who said that her roommate sang offensive lyrics and that kind of thing. You never heard from the roommate, which seems like it would have been easy to track her down. And then in every story, all the other things that had been heard of or hearsay, because nobody really seems to be able to acknowledge any of them, especially this swastika thing. And why that gets thrown in there, I'm not really clear anyway, and nobody really makes the connection. There's no good way to do this, because you have to say, because the first question anybody's going to ask is, well, like what? And so it's our duty to go find out, well, like what? Like, what were the incidents? But, you know, they're vague. And I find it troubling when you build a whole story around one, and then you don't even, like in the Times story yesterday, bother to find out, well, is that what the white roommate was going to say happened too?
Well, we need data, and in the absence of data, we only have anecdotes to fall back on. One of the others that I have found particularly striking, and like some of these others, this has come under question as to whether it actually happened or not, but it was the fraternity at Yale that supposedly said white girls only into this party. I mean, that's just kind of horrifying.
And that has been denied too.
And that's been denied too. What really strikes me about this is that you're dealing with a climate in which there are so few African American students on campus, and even fewer African American faculty members, that you have this pre-existing tension. And when something like one of these incidents happens, it plays into simmering problems that were already there just beneath the surface. And I think that's why, for those of us looking at this from the outside, it almost looks like an overreaction. But it's not an overreaction, because these tensions are real and they're there.
No, I don't doubt that. I'm just saying the way you go about it.
Well, then maybe there's the story, Dan. Not to try to chase down what we really don't know and what might be difficult to ever know for sure, but to go for what the data does tell us. If there's a marked lack of representation on college campuses of black students, of black faculty, after all these years and all this talk, I'd like to know why. What is going on with the admissions process, with the hiring process? Now you're getting into some institutional stories that might well clarify the extent of institutional racism and maybe even result in some possible ways out from under it. That would be productive, I think.
I think one of the stories that probably will be covered more is this idea that a career like Tim Wolf's, so it's, take her to however good he was as president, that he could, that this could, obviously he seems to be the proxy for generations of racism, and it just seemed to reach a critical mass. So the question is, who, could this happen? Who couldn't this happen to in academia suddenly? And I think I turned back to Yale with that situation with the Halloween costumes, which was really quite interesting and bizarre. But someone in the academic community said that it's not such a bad idea to have Halloween costumes that might be a little bit off kilter, and that created this huge storm of protests. So it's interesting. It's almost like it's a landmine kind of climate there, and who is who is safe?
Well, the problem is exactly what Dan says. These are long simmering tensions. All of this stuff happens all the time. So then when people land on the campus after an explosion and say, tell it to me, and they tell you 2 or 3 things, it sounds like, that's it? Well, no, that's it over times 10, all the time, every day. And I don't say anything, and I don't say anything, or I go to my teacher, or I go to the faculty, or I protest about lack of representation on the campus, and nothing ever changes. With regard to Tim Wolf, by the way, apparently he had a lot of other administrative problems in addition to this final unresponsiveness to the racial tension. And so he was heading in a direction, it seems, by what I've read about from other faculty members and about other issues. And it just all came together because he wasn't responsive here. So the problem is it's difficult to cover systemic racism, and that's what we're talking about.
But that's what we're trying to do by bringing up things like a swastika on a mirror, which no one even knows who reported that.
That's a climate of hate, and by the way, that was the second one. That's the second one, as I understand it.
It's unclear if there ever was one. I mean, it's just
well,
not.
That's what you say, but what I'm reading is it was the second one that has happened on the campus, and by the time this one showed up, with the other things happening, then again, it's based. You got the simmering stuff going on. There's a second swastika. Then it explodes because people are like, how many times do we have to say something? Is anybody going to respond? So we're back to how do we cover it, because that's what we're talking about here. And you cover it by looking at it over a long period of time and not descending and hoping to grab something in the moment that makes sense about something that's systemic.
And hopefully looking at the bigger issues, too.
That's what I'm saying.